and welcome to the Pro Baseball World Tour here on the new RGC Multimedia YouTube channel. My name is Rick Crabbe, and joining me as always from his palatial estate in New York, soon to be ambassador to Taiwan, we have our co-host Eric Marinbach. Eric, welcome back again.
Hello, annyeonghaseyo, konnichiwa, and all that fun international stuff. How are you?
All right, great. Well, Eric, we'll get into everything. We'll start with what's happening in the U.S., and of course, it's a lot of news, unfortunately, for the bad reasons. Before we get to that, though, how'd you feel on making your YouTube debut last week?
I love hearing myself. It's a vanity thing. What can I tell you?
Yeah. Well, I like hearing you too, and hopefully we'll get. And we had a few people who listened to us last week. I think they liked it as well, and thank you everyone who has done that, by the way. And as the usual YouTuber expressions, like, share, subscribe, pass the word on, so we can blow this thing up, and Eric and I can talk to you from Taiwan and Japan and Korea in the future. All right. But okay. Yeah, definitely. All right, Eric, we're going to go right into things. We're going to start off with what's happening on our side of the Atlantic and in our hemisphere in Major League Baseball. And as I mentioned, it's a lot of negative from that compared to being spoiled watching the KBO and the other international leagues. It seems like everywhere else in the world, it seems like they're getting a handle on this pandemic, and I don't know, some people here just aren't getting it. They're just, I don't know. They're a little thick-headed with the stuff. I don't know, but
It really is a shame that it has come down to this. I've got many opinions on it, and it all centralizes on one area, Florida.
right.
You got a situation where of anybody that tested positive, it's all about the Marlins at this point. And it's all about Florida. Florida this week overtook New York as having the second most coronavirus cases in the entire United States for the population other than California. Now, they don't have the death totals yet, but they tower over places like New York as far as still active cases. So these positive cases that are coming in, I don't know whether they're deathly or not, but the death potential, as morbid as it sounds, is there. So the numbers are going to start creeping up. There are people that don't believe it. I happen to. I'm glad I'm back in New York where it's safe, and we'll just take it day by day, that's all.
Yeah, I'm glad you're back too, because, I was worried when numbers were spiking. It's like shortly before you came back up. That was scary. And for everybody down there in Florida, especially the ones who are taking this seriously and trying to stay healthy, please stay that way and, do what you have to do there. But that was a great segue. We segued into the Florida Marlins. Now, last week, Eric, it's funny. Last week it seemed like the whole news was about the Toronto Blue Jays moving. This week it's all about the Marlins infecting a good portion of the American League East as well as the National League East. Now, I don't know what the numbers are as of today, Eric. Maybe you may comment on that. Folks were taping this on Saturday, August 1st. Last count that I had seen for the Marlins, it looks like they had 17 players that tested and 3 coaches that tested. And as a result of that, the Phillies were supposed to play their games until their season was postponed until Friday until they can get some testing. The Marlins were postponed until Monday until they can get their act together. Your New York Yankees were originally scheduled to go to Philadelphia to go to the same clubhouse and dugout that the Marlins had just left. They decided instead, they worked it out with the league and with Baltimore that they can come down and play there instead, and the Baltimore Orioles hosted 2 games with the Yankees as a result. The Washington Nationals were also supposed to play this weekend against the Marlins, but the Nationals actually took a player vote, and they voted no way. We're not going down there. We're not risking ourselves, and you can't blame them one bit for that, Eric. So I mean, the Marlins. I mean, a lot of people had low expectations as far as what happens on the diamond, but right now they were able to beat 4 teams in in only like 3 games. That's a pretty mean feat. I don't know what you think about that.
Well, here's a little bit of an update. Philly actually postponed the rest of the games for their weekend, as I believe there were 2 other players and/or staff that tested positive, so they squashed their entire weekend, as well as the Cardinals and Brewers.
Oh, kind of good.
Just postponed their last 2 games because there was, I believe, 2 staff members from the Cardinals, not necessarily players, but staff members, that came down with COVID.
Gosh.
So far the first 2 games of that series in Milwaukee against the Brewers, that's been canceled. So there's going to have to be some reworking of schedules and or doubleheaders, which that's another thing that came up this week, that they finally accepted proposals to make game 7-inning doubleheaders like they do in the minor leagues.
Right. I was going to say, you and I watch a lot of minor league ball. We're used to that. I heard a lot of talking heads were complaining about that, saying, "Oh, that's not baseball." It's like, oh, really? You haven't seen any AA or AAA, I guess. I don't know. But, this is an unusual year. You have to, rule-wise, I think that's a good idea as far as for safety and all. But, they have to do something with these players as far as, I don't know. They have to make pretty much each road trip a bubble. I'd even heard, I think, Ken Singleton, who's an announcer on Yes, who I'm sure you're familiar with. I'm familiar with as well as with his years with the Orioles. He did an interview here locally, and he had said that the Yankees are taking it seriously. When they travel, their hotel's a bubble. They're not going anywhere. And that's probably what every team should do, So.
Other teams are doing it. You're going to obviously get some strays as these cases are coming up. And I want to digress a little bit as far as another sport that started doing a bubble, and that's the National Hockey League, which ironically are doing all of their games in Canada.
Right.
The same country that basically told the Blue Jays, you can't play in Toronto, so you're going to have to find a home someplace else. But yet the National Hockey League, that's full of American players and international stars as well, their bubble is 2 Canadian locations. I believe one is in Toronto and the other one is all the way in Vancouver.
And I think the reason the Canadian government prohibited the Blue Jays from doing it, they were worried about teams from the American cities, especially from Tampa Bay and Miami coming. Yet the National Hockey League also has the Florida Panthers, who are based in South Florida, and the Tampa Bay Lightning. So, I don't think you can in a way, I don't blame the Canadian government for doing that, but the other hand, I think maybe also, too, the National Hockey League seemed like they were setting up a little bit before that, so maybe they took even more protocols. So, I don't know, it seems like every country's taking more protocols or treating it better than us for some reason, and it's a darn shame. It really is.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, in other news, and slightly positive, Atlanta Braves player Nick Markakis, he originally chose not to return to play, but after watching his teammates play a few games, he changed his mind and decided he wanted to play this year after all. So, I don't know, I thought that was unusual. You see players dropping out in different sports. Here's one that says, you know what, I want to come back and play with my teammates. So, good luck with him. I hope he doesn't suffer any detriments from that, I should say.
I actually applauded him for coming back and having the courage to actually want to come back and play the game that he did. I'm kind of surprised that more players don't follow, but nothing surprises me in this whole scheme of things anymore.
No, And you really can't blame them because, I mean, a lot of players, I mean, it's not just the players themselves, but their family situations are different, especially ones who have been, like, traded from teams this year where, I don't know, they may still have family in other cities or their previous cities, that kind of thing, moving their kids for school, and they're worried about, especially Markakis, who is in Atlanta, which supposedly how this whole thing started with the Marlins, they went out for a night on the town in Atlanta. So, I mean, Georgia might have some problems. I mean, a lot of the southern states are actually having problems with this, so we'll see. I mean, hopefully saner and more scientific heads will prevail on this, but I don't know. It's more of a play here.
The science and the numbers over skeptics any day.
Yeah, no doubt. One other story in the major leagues, I want to talk to you about that. For once, it does not have to do with COVID, but there is some negativity associated with it. LA Dodgers pitcher Joe Kelly was suspended for, well, I originally wrote beating, but I looked closely at the highlights. He didn't really even beat any Houston Astros players, but there was concern by the commissioner, Mr. Manfred, about people throwing at the Houston Astros because of them getting caught in their cheating scandal and teams retaliating, especially the Dodgers. Many times the Dodgers have even said that they were screwed out of a World Series, that the World Series that Houston won should be theirs, and right away, Manfred's like, look, we're not going to put up with that, and Kelly was suspended for 8 games, which is equivalent to a lot more in a larger season, though. I don't know, I've heard a lot of people say both sides of it. I want to hear your take first. I'll give you mine, but I want to hear what you have to say first.
Okay. Here's my thing. Joe Kelly has always had a reputation as, how do we put this nicely, a headhunter?
Mm-hmm.
So, you put that together with the Astro cheating scandal, it's like the perfect storm.
Right.
So, when he came inside on, I believe it was Altuve, and it could have been Bregman as well, it was like enough's enough. The Astros knew of Kelly's reputation from different teams and different videos and all that, and frustration prevailed over it. Dave Roberts got a game suspended also because he's the manager of the team, and that's protocol of what you do when you suspend a player. The 8 games, okay, it might have been a little expensive, but it's one of those setting an example kind of thing. I don't care how long the season is. You got to give a guy 8 games. You weren't going to give him any more than that if it was a 162.
Right.
But 8 games is a perfect way to just shut everybody up. I know Kelly's appealing it. I don't know if there was a knockdown as far as maybe a game or 2, but he deserves everything he gets. He's even got shirts that either he and or somebody else as a bootlegger might have constructed that says Joe Kelly Fight Club.
I saw that over the week.
The guy is already known for his shenanigans.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said on that. My personal thing, not just on this case, but just in general, I think, I don't know, the whole notion of, well, you hit our guy, now we got to come back and hit yours, that kind of thing. I mean, it sounds almost like stuff you see like in hockey or whatever. And don't get me wrong, I'm a huge fan of hockey in the NHL, but it's one thing, if you're going to throw, I think if you're going to throw at a player, throw at their legs, throw at their thighs or something like that. Don't be thrown at their head. And I mean, I remember watching the Subway Series with the Yankees and the Mets and seeing Clemens throw at Piazza. I thought he killed him when I first saw it. That was just scary as hell. I mean, I don't believe in doing that. I mean, Mr. Clemens has a reputation of doing that as well, but I don't know. I felt for Mike Piazza. I thought, thought he might even suffer like brain damage or something. Who knows? I mean, it's scary, I think, when they do that, though, Eric.
Well, not only that, but you you had Clemens, as deranged as he was, basically because of PEDs and whatever else he's gone through in his lifetime, tell little wives' tales that he thought it was the bat being flung back at him and all this other stuff. I don't believe a word of it.
No.
Since it was Subway Series and a Yankee versus Mets thing, you're going to have a difference of opinion from both fan bases.
True.
Even though I'm a Yankees fan, I kind of side with Piazza, as strange as it.
Right. I mean, it was like, I remember not only seeing it, but hearing it, too. I mean, it sounded almost like it went off of his bat, but it didn't. It went off of his helmet. You know, it's like, I don't know.
Right.
And I'm not just saying it because it's Yankees or whatever. It's just in general. I've seen a lot of players do that, too. I mean, you know, it's like Nolan Ryan, he was known for doing that a few times as well. And then, although I did love when he fought up Robin Ventura and, you know, kicked his butt. I thought that was kind of funny, but that's just my personal opinion. But no, I mean, I just think that part of the game, I think he should, I don't know, maybe the commissioner should even write a rule on that or something, or umpires enforce it differently. I'm not sure really what to do with that, but I just don't agree with it, though.
Unfortunately, there isn't a rule. I mean, there's common sense, there's gentleman's agreement, there's stuff that you do that you're not supposed to, all this other stuff. All that gets thrown out the window when, you know, it's totally impulsive.
Right.
So if you're going to hand out suspensions, of course it's going to be uneven. But it's the nature of the beast, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately. That's true. Well, hopefully there'll be some more testing, and I think I did hear something about the Phillies earlier today where they did receive a few more tests and all, and I think I did hear you said there were like some staff members or something like that, but I don't know. I'm hoping they learned their lesson from what the Marlins did, and hopefully players just take this more seriously, teams take this more seriously, coaches, everybody takes it more seriously, so we can get in some more baseball and get everybody home safe, like we said last week. So.
Right. And I'll just say one more thing and then we can go on. Mm-hmm. I am very surprised that having had all the situations in certain states, with certain states spiking, that the Marlins were not told to relocate like the Jays were. Mm. And now that everything has come up where it's rampant, not only in the state itself, but amongst the team, you can't just have that team running around infecting other states like that. So at this point, when you have this few games, I would, and I know it's going to cause some sort of grievance amongst major league players and all that, I shut down the team. Because you're endangering a 60-man roster on 29 other teams, as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
With them running around willy-nilly. So if you're not going to suspend the players and or whatever, you shut them down, you forfeit any of the games so the 29 other teams get their wins, and be done with it. Because they're not getting fined or suspended or getting any sort of reprimand from Major League Baseball other than threats of shutting down the entire thing, which is unfair to the 29 other teams.
Yeah. Well, I might have something there. One thing I'm curious about, though, after just talking about what happened with the Dodgers and the Astros, I'm wondering if some of these teams, once things get rolling again, I mean, they're playing, all these teams are playing within their divisions or their interleague division counterparts. I mean, could you see a scenario where you see like the Phillies or the Yankees retaliate, be like, you know what, you almost got our teammates sick, you know, we're gonna beat some of your guys to teach you a lesson. I don't know, I'm kind of... Yeah.
No, you can't do it. Yeah. You can't do it because if in fact the Marlins are allowed to take a field again, and teams start doing that, it's only going to look bad image-wise as well as possible other infections occurring.
True. Okay. Well, now that you mentioned, there's one thing I wanted to ask you. I meant to ask you this during the week off the air, because I only saw like a little blurb about it, but I haven't seen too much about it. I had heard that New York Governor Cuomo was offering to use the state of New York as a bubble site. Did you hear anything about that? Or were there any updates coming from that, if you have?
I've heard it, and I love the idea. Here's the problem that I'm seeing, though. And this actually stems from, believe it or not, the fact that Toronto hasn't even had a quote-unquote home game in Buffalo yet.
No.
There are plenty of other sites that they can use in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area as far as ballparks. But I think what's going on now, and it's maybe political or maybe just hypothetical nonsense, is having these stadiums major league compatible.
Right.
You're not getting any fans in these stadiums anyway, so who cares how big a stadium is?
Well, I think the issue with the Blue Jays, when they were talking about going to Buffalo, they were worried about the lighting and, like, I don't know, some of the clubhouses, and I guess maybe they had, like, I don't know, like batting cages underneath or that kind of thing. I think it was more like with their own facilities, not so much. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, they could play like on a Little League park now, but, if there are other issues with the lighting and stuff like that, I can kind of understand that, but...
That's possible, but I gotta tell you, you still have enough facilities, whether it's a single A level team, double A, so on and so forth. I mean, I had even toyed with moving, before Arizona became a hotspot, I was even toying with the idea, and I might have even discussed this with you last week, about how spring training as a whole should be just in the state of Arizona because of the distance and travel, and you get a hell of a lot more players that actually want to play because the travel is so little in Arizona as opposed to Florida.
Right.
If you really wanted to do that bubble, you could have done it between the Phoenix Scottsdale area and the Tucson Flagstaff, that big region. And if you really wanted to go like an interleague scenario, it's a 2-hour bus ride. No biggie.
Right.
So you've got two potential bubbles that would have been over there. Of course, hindsight 2020, Arizona now is one of the hotspots, although in hindsight, they are 8th overall in total cases. So if you think about it, it still could have been done, but it's too late now. They're not going to commit to anything or move the whole shebang.
Oh, no, of course not. And I think also, too, Eric, with some of the stadiums, I know that this was the case when they were negotiating with the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Orioles. The Pirates and the Orioles didn't want to share their clubhouses. There was talk that with both stadiums about them somehow building a separate clubhouse and separate other things, but I don't know. I think that was more the stumbling block with Baltimore than it was with Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, I think it was the government of the state of Pennsylvania had some more input with that particular situation, but I think that's what it was too. It was like, I don't know, they didn't want to share the facilities, and you can't blame them in a way, but I don't know. And now what I found interesting with Cuomo's comments, though, as far as bringing people over, having the bubble situation there, he made a comment saying it would be good for tourism, and I was curious how that would be, since no fans would be allowed to go to any of the games unless, I don't know, he figures maybe people from Boston will go to bars in New York to watch the Yankees, but I don't know. I mean, they might. I heard like some states are going back to closing them again. And here in Baltimore, or in Maryland, they expanded the mask order throughout public places, indoors as well as out. So I don't know.
Well, you're still talking hotel revenue. You're still talking restaurant revenue. So it would have been great for tourism as a whole. and for New York morale as a whole, considering all we've been through as far as what we had in COVID compared to what we have in COVID now,
right,
which is only 100,000 active cases, which we've come a long way from the 400 some odd thousand that we did have.
Yeah. I mean, you guys have made some good strides, and some states have. And I'll give credit to my own governor. He's tried to flatten the curve as much as possible, and he caught a lot of criticism, and I even had a little bit for him at first when he started shutting down jobs and businesses and all that sort of thing. But needed to be done, and probably will still need to be done. So, we got to take care of people. That's all there is to it. All right. Yeah. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the KBO with a few interesting tidbits about there, some more positive news from them, fortunately, and we'll get to that right away. You're listening to the Pro Baseball World Tour here on the RGC Multimedia YouTube channel. Folks, we're back. Welcome back to Pro Baseball World Tour here on RGC Multimedia. We're Crabbe, Eric Marinbach. We now shift our World Tour over to Korea with the good folks of the KBO. One positive instance with that, we mentioned it a little bit on last week's program because they were in the process of doing this. This was the first full week that the KBO had fans in the stands of their games. As we mentioned before, at most stadiums it was 10%, except for, I think there was one stadium, it might have been in Hanwha, one of the southern stadiums, I believe, that did not allow any fans still. But for the most part, it was good to see fans in the stands. What was your take on that, Eric? How much KBO did you get to see this week?
Well, here's my thing. I have always been CPBL first, and kind of use KBO as a backup. What I have been doing actually, since my TV has the capability of switching between three inputs, I would actually have the ESPN game on one HDMI, the CPBL on one, and a Japanese game on the other. So I'm kind of like flipping between all three of them at the same time, which is excellent.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, I was kind of doing a little bit with that as well. Slightly lower tech version of it, though. I was listening to the Orioles on over-air radio and watching a Twitch replay of Hanwha and the LG Twins. That was fun, but, I like doing that as well. Sometimes I'll even, I'll play music or something over the commentary, but sometimes I actually like the Korean commentary. Sometimes I like it even better than the ESPN commentary, oddly enough, but...
Well, as far as the commentary, ever since MLB started, as you know, they switched the commentators. Mm. And I don't even know where these guys are from, but between you, me, and the wall, I would rather have, and this is the shameless plug part of the show, Danny Kurtz from Live KBO and Daniel Kim from his little YouTube show do all the broadcasting and all the commentary in English as opposed to these guys now. Because I don't know where they got these guys from. They're obviously employees of the network. Mm-hmm. But as clueless as Ravitch and everybody else was at the beginning, these guys are like Little League. So they're not even talking Korean baseball. And in fact, since the NBA was starting this week, they were focused more on NBA during their broadcast than of the game itself. It was kind of like the game was there in the background.
Pretty much. It seemed like that all year, though, Eric. That it seems like ESPN is just basically treating the KBO as something for their baseball announcers, something their MLB people, something for them to do. I think the two announcers that they got from what I've read, I think they cover like the College World Series, a lot of the college games there, and I don't know. I mean, at first I saw like the first couple games, it seemed to do okay. I'm beginning to think the problem with that network, it's not so much the announcers, although Crabbe and my buddy Ciambi, they do have their issues. I'll agree with you there. I think it's more the producers. They have somebody in Stanford saying, okay, they don't want to hear the, play-by-play. They want to hear about guests. They want to hear about the Marlins infecting everybody. They want to hear about NBA wearing Black Lives Matter on their jerseys, stuff that has nothing to do with anything they can think of that has nothing to do with the game, but something to plug their network. They just, I don't know. I don't know why they don't just air commercials for their stuff instead of the baseball, because they don't really seem to give a Sanjin about it. That's just my opinion. I don't know.
I actually watched, I think it was the Brooklyn Nets game yesterday, and I didn't even know about the jerseys being changed over, that instead of the last names, there were different slogans on the back of the jersey and all that stuff.
Huh.
But when you get a sport that will start doing that, I won't watch it as much.
Right, it's nuances of that particular league in that game. It kind of reminds me of a scene in Pulp Fiction where you had John Travolta going with Samuel L. Jackson to their first hit at the beginning of the movie, and Travolta's talking about his time in Amsterdam, and one thing he said he liked about Europe were the little differences. He said they have a lot of the same stuff there that we do here, but it's just a little different, and he compared things. I think that applies with the KBO and some of these other leagues. I mean, you want to see the cheerleaders, you want to hear about some of the fans' customs, and I don't know, the fans, I really like their enthusiasm with them though. But I mean, there was one game, I think it was Kiwoom against Doosan, and they had these two girls, and one was a Doosan fan, the other was a Kiwoom fan, and it's Doosan had some runners on, and Kiwoom actually got out of that inning, and the Kiwoom fans were all, clapping, and this Kiwoom girl actually pushed the Doosan girl. I was like, you suck, It was the weirdest thing. It's the social distancing thing, but it's they're 2 feet apart, and the girl was like, And meanwhile, this Doosan girl just looked so dejected, And one thing I noticed about their fans, I don't know, you probably seen this before. This was the first time I had seen it myself. A lot of the female fans, they do this thing they would take their favorite players' jerseys, and they would actually wear them backwards, so it shows the name and the number. I don't know. I guess it's common with the ladies. I don't know. Have you seen a lot of that, though? I mean, like I said, it's my first year watching KBO, and it's the first time seeing it with fans. That was just one little observation I saw, but I don't know. Could be insignificant. I don't know.
I've seen it in the States, too. You get your groupies. You get your people that just want to be on TV, that want to do something kooky. So, but I don't make too much of it.
Right. I wasn't so sure it was kooky because I saw a lot of ladies doing it. I think it's just, I don't know, I've seen it more in hockey where a lot of girls will wear the jersey. I mean, you see it in all sports, but I mean, I think it was just, it's just either their favorite player was at bat, or they were pitching, or whatnot. But I don't know. I thought that was kind of interesting. Now, one thing with the KBO, what they were doing, in addition to the 10% of their stadiums, they wanted the teams to space the seats for social distancing. And most of the games I saw, I watched a bunch of different games on ESPN and Twitch, they did that. However, the Lotte Giants got reprimanded by the Korean government. Because what they did, they sold the correct amount of tickets, it seemed, but they had everybody sit together. It looked like they were all almost in the same, left field or right field section. They even showed some tweets about it, and then the Korean government was they actually warned them, said, look, we'll shut the whole KBO down if you don't do all this stuff. So, I mean, it was, the government took this seriously, and hopefully the Loki Giants took this seriously as well by doing that.
Right, and I'm even noticing there was one game in Johnson where the fans were shouting their players' names, raising banners, and doing their fight song. As far as I knew, when they initially started letting fans in to the stadiums, the guidelines were that, okay, you can be allowed in there, but basically you're sitting on your hands.
Right.
Which I know you can't do in the heat of the moment, and that's why it can't be governed, because who's not going to cheer? Even with all the music and the fan support, the cheerleaders going on. So I can definitely see where the fans will get a little overzealous as opposed to the guidelines. Mm-hmm. But it's bound to happen.
Right, I agree. I thought I had seen that as well, but I guess I don't know. Maybe they relaxed that particular guideline, but it's because it seemed like they were one of the Donso games, and it might have been the same game you saw. It looked like they were distancing, even though they were still dancing and waving flags and and all that. And the cheer team started putting their masks back on because it seemed like they stopped doing that the week before they announced they were going to let people in, but. I don't know. So we'll take that for what it's worth.
I just hope that they do and Japan does like they did in Taiwan, where you had a certain amount of fans that the first part of the week or so, you'll see that the experiment is working and you gradually increase it until you're at the point where Taiwan is, where you can actually have full capacity.
Right.
And the full cheering experience, and that's what it is. Because really, that's what KBO, NPB, and CPBL, that's what they're all about.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that they sold people here on TV, where, I think we were talking about that last time. It was that and the bat flips, it's part of the game, but I don't know. There was one other news item I wanted to get to. I'm trying to go to my Twitter. It was Daniel Kim had mentioned it as far as there was talk of the closer for the Hanwha Eagles. He's highly regarded. And he thinks he may be a good fit for the NC Dinos. Now, that's one thing, you and I know about the KBO. That's usually the weakness of a lot of teams is the bullpen play. And if the Dinos could just maybe get that one piece that could help them get to the Korean Series, that might be the way to go for them. I don't know.
I just wonder what the Dinos' end of the deal would be. Because, all right, Hanwha is, how we say in MPB, a seller. Right. The trading deadline, if there is such a scenario in the KBO. But who would the Dinos give up for a closer, which, in my opinion, okay, yeah, they need it, but who would Hanwha want as far as their development for the future?
Makes you wonder. I don't know. I'm not sure. That may have been, again, that might have been just speculation of, Daniel Kim, and he is highly informed. He's probably the most informed person in that league. It might have been just like his opinion as far as a team that gentleman could go to, but
of any teams that could use him, it's definitely the top four.
Right.
Of that league, which at this point, Kiwoom, I believe, has actually overtaken Doosan for second place.
Right.
You're looking at NC. Kiwoom could use him. Doosan could definitely use him. Mm-hmm. I even think Kia could use a closer if they want to make a run, because Williams is starting to show his managerial experience, and I think the players themselves are actually catching on and appreciating what he's doing. So they may make a run at the higher spots in the playoff picture.
Yeah, it's a very tight race, and I'll get to the scoreboard in just a moment. Before that, I found the tweet. It was retweeted actually from Dan Kurtz, but it was tweeted originally by Daniel Kim. I'll read this really quick. It says, "We are now 14 days away from KBO trade deadline. Biggest possible player in the market is Hanwha Eagles closer Hu Ram Jung. He would be a huge upgrade for the NC Dinos. Jung has a ton of PS experience, and do expect him to be moved eventually before the deadline." And then I think it's just a click to the picture of Mr. Young. But let's go to the scoreboard, the standings real quick for the KBO.
You read my mind. I kind of just did that.
I beg your pardon?
I said you read my mind. I kind of just did that.
Right. Okay. And I was looking at another league earlier, so let's see. For baseball, we'll hit the KBO, and there's the results, and we'll go to the standings.
Okay, yours is probably a little slow, so I'll kind of do a little revamp. As of today, NC's still got a 5-game lead over, as I said, Keeneland got second place.
Right.
They've got a 1-game lead over Dusseldorf. Then LG and Kia are actually tied for 4th place.
Right, yeah, because as of yesterday, it was like Kia was a half a game behind LG, but yes, I'm looking at that right now. They're still in the top 5, and then the Wiz are starting to come on strong a little bit. They're not far behind either, so it's an interesting race. Lotte, they're kind of slipping a little bit. Samsung is kind of going down with them, and then the Wyverns and the Eagles are, they're lining the bottom of the division, so there you go. But
somebody's got to do it.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah, and I don't know, cleaning up after Dragons or Eagles might not be the cleanest job there is, but like I said, somebody has to do it. All right, folks. Well, we're going to take another break, and when we come back, we are going to introduce a brand new segment of the show. We'll get to that in a little bit. You are listening to Pro Baseball World Tour here on RGC Multimedia. We'll be right back. All right, folks, welcome back to Pro Baseball World Tour here on RGC Multimedia. Rick Crabbe, Eric Marinbach, and we're going to introduce a new segment to the show. We had some people comment on not only our premiere last week, not only on YouTube, we also saw some on Facebook. And by the way, folks, we have a new Facebook group for the show as well as for our channel. I will post the links to them in the description of this video. Folks, because like every other small business, a lot of us are short-staffed during the pandemic, so appreciate your patience. We're going to get things rolling for you, but we'll have all kinds of social media for you to interact with us, and we certainly welcome that. As we do with this one gentleman named Timmy Dixon, who commented to us on Facebook in the MyKBO.net community. And he asked if we could look at baseball in Europe and South America. So, Eric, I looked at some of the leagues. You and I were discussing this off of the air. The two main ones that I saw, and you had mentioned both of these to me, the Italian Baseball League as well as the Dutch Major League, and I apologize to our friends in the Netherlands if I butcher this, the Honkbal Hoofdklasse, so anyway, that's like the top league, and I think they have something called an Uberklasse, which is like their champions, their Futures League or minor league, that kind of thing. But, so as...
Right, and there's also a league in Curacao as well, which I forget the name of that league, but actually I have a couple of friends that are playing in there.
Oh, very nice. Okay. Well, use your ambassador powers. Maybe, I don't know, we can get them on the show one day. Who knows? It's things to shoot for on this, Eric, but that would be awesome. But so with the European leagues, I noticed a few things. They had the website for the Italian league. It's basically their federation that oversees various levels of baseball as well as softball. And their top League or Major League Baseball equivalent, the Serie A1, is their top major league in Italy, and I'm going to go to their standings as we speak. I'll click on out of the KBO into the Serie A1, and Alright, here it comes. Voila. I'm going to go to the standings first. It looks like, I just got the results of it. Looks like here's what we have going on right now. In first place in the Serie A1 in Italy, we have Fortitudo 1953 at 12-0. We have San Marino at 11-1. At Parma at 6-6. Then it's a significant drop-off. We have the Godo Knights at 3-9. Macerata at 2-10. And Colecchio also at 2-10. So we'll get to some. Let me click on some results real quick. I want to see something there before we proceed. And okay, these are our out-of-town box scores for the great country of Italy. These are results as of August the 1st. Parma defeating Marceta 10-2. Colecchio defeating Fortitude 1953 Fortitude 1953 defeating Colecchio 8-1. San Marino defeating the Godo Knights 9-0. And it looks like there is a doubleheader with Fortitudo beating Colecchio again 5-3. Also, Parma beating Macerata 6-5. Those are results as of today, August the 1st, in Italy. So there you go. You and I were talking.
I believe every word of it.
Okay. Oh, good. Yeah, I'll believe it too, unless someone is in there at scoreboard.com, and I trust their results. So there you have it. Now, Eric, you and I were talking about as far as league games to watch. You said you had a chance to see some of them. I mean, you said the level of play was comparable to what some of the independent leagues here in this country. I mean, what did you take from it as far as any similarities, any differences from what we may see in America or Korea or other more prominent professional leagues?
Well, the only games that seemed to be on were the games, I believe, from Godo, as far as Italy goes. Mm-hmm. Stadiums were empty. I don't know if there are any fans that actually go to these games.
Right.
Level of play, a little sloppy, so I would probably equate it to a high A/AA level in our country. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of defensive fundamentals that are missing from the game. But, hey, it's a developmental league, and obviously Italy at one point was high enough in the IBAF standings to qualify for international tournaments such as the Premier 12, etc., and even get into the WBC back in, I believe it was 2013. So they must be doing something right.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's good to see the game spread out to other places. And one thing I found out about the Dutch Major League, which we'll get to shortly, I looked up in their Wikipedia. It said their league started in 1922. I didn't even think, the game had been played there. But, I mean, I guess it started here in the late 1800s, so I guess maybe it spread to other communities in different ways. I don't know. But
well, that's where a lot of the guys that were on the Netherlands team in the international tournaments, WBC, Premier 12 or whatever, the guys that aren't major league or minor league ready, that's where these guys come and play. So there are tournaments such as the World Port Tournament and other things that are right in the Amsterdam, Holland, and even Curacao areas that are widely broadcast, as far as I know. And that's where these guys get their start, and they keep their training upwards in hopes to get somewhat of an independent league shot in the U.S. and see where it goes from there.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, segueing into that, we are going to travel to the Netherlands now and look at some of their results and some of their standings as well. It looks like the standings as of today, August 1st, we have, it looks like DSS Kinheim losing to the Curaçao Neptunus 18-0. My goodness. Then we have L&D and I'm sorry.
Interesting.
Yep. And then we have L&D Amsterdam defeating the Twins of their league 6-0. Then we have Amersfoort defeating the Storks 7-4. And these names are funny. Wait to hear this one. You have Hoofddorp Pioneers defeating the Mr. Cocker HCAW 6-2. I'm guessing they're like Korea and Taiwan where they have the sponsors, as part of the team's names. But wow, Mr. Cocker, I don't know. We're not going to go too far with that, though. I mean, we could get in trouble with YouTube if we do. Wow.
Maybe that's why they don't stream them.
That's why they what?
Maybe that's why they don't stream them, because they're afraid that the names will be in violation of YouTube agreement or something.
Right, yeah. They might have to be like the HCAW baseball team, like the Washington football team, I guess. I don't know how that works, but... Or maybe those words are innocent in the Dutch language, and I don't know, we're just two Americans giggling about it. Who knows? I don't know. Or one American's giggling about it and being immature. I'll take that one. But anyway, let us go to the standings of the Handballhoofdklasse. Curaçao is in first place, followed by Mr. Cocker HCAW at 3-1. The Hoofddorp Pioneers at 3. I take that back. They're 3-1-1 because there was a tie. It looks like Curaçao was 4-0-1 because they. Okay, I'm looking at the standings. I apologize, folks, but how they have it arranged, it's wins, ties, and losses instead of wins, losses, ties. That's what's throwing me off. But anyway, it's 4-1-0 for Curaçao, 3-1-1 for Mr. Cocker, 3-2-0 for the Hoofddorp Pioneers, 3-2-0 for L&D Amsterdam, 3-2-0 for the Twins, 2-1 for Amersfoort, 1-4-0 for DSS Kinheim, and the Storks. Oh my goodness, they're 0-5-0. So not a good start for the Storks so far. And it looks like now you and I were talking about this, Eric. I went to the league's website, and you said that sometimes the league doesn't update as quickly as scoreboard.com or other independent sites. And that seemed to be the case because they had a message where basically said they were delaying their season because of COVID, and they were actually having the Netherlands players play in an MLB The Show tournament and airing that on live streams. But obviously they had just started. I mean, each team has only played 5 games, so it looks like they had just started. And the results I had read were from today, and I saw some from yesterday prior to that. So hopefully it looks like our friends in the Netherlands are getting the COVID under control a little bit and are starting to play some baseball too. So that's a good thing to see.
Everybody seems to be getting control of it except for us.
Yeah, it's a pattern here, unfortunately. Alright, folks, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll go into our final segment, and we'll talk about the CPBL and the NPB. You're listening to Pro Baseball World Tour here on RTC Multimedia. We'll be right back. Alright, folks, welcome back to Pro Baseball World Tour. We are reaching our final segment where we discuss the goings-on in the great countries of Taiwan as well as Japan. And Eric, as I did last week, I'm going to defer to your knowledge of the CPBL. Tell us your take on what happened this week in that league.
second half is well underway. There's only been one rainout this week. So you've got basically the two teams that finished in first and second place in the first half. They are actually tied for first and second place in this half. That's 4-3, being Racket and Monkeys and the Brother Elephants. Today's games, Racket won and Fluban won, so that's what made it 4-3. What I'm liking and what I'm seeing about the things that's going on in the draft here, there's been a lot of walk-ups in the last couple of days. I love a walk-up victory, especially in these Asian leagues where there's a lot of celebrations, a lot of not necessarily Gatorade dumps, but you've got your guys that are actually running onto the field with 20-ounce bottles of water and spraying them onto the guys. And then in the CPBL, they also have, like they do in NPB, the player interviews. And they're getting dumped with Gatorade. And it's just part of the excitement of the game.
Right. Yeah, I've seen some of that. Also, in like KBO, they would do that. It would be like a walk-off, and the guy would be on his way to second base, and the teams would just mob him with that, you know. But that is fun to see. Now, since you do watch that league a lot, and you're beginning to see a lot of walk-offs, are you seeing issues with their bullpens or their closers like you do in the KBO, or is it just happens to be much closer games, and you have a game-winning hit or a home run or whatever?
The games are actually a lot lower scoring lately. Because in the beginning of the season, where not the pitching, the hitting actually seemed to be ahead of the pitching, because you were seeing in every league very high score totals. Now, I don't bet on the games themselves, but you pretty much, as these scoreboard people would do and scoreboard watch, you take the over.
Right.
Because there was absolutely no pitching, whether it was starters and or relievers. And the lower scoring games were actually being pitched by the American starters. The imports that were brought into the league.
Right.
And you're actually still seeing that now, but the games themselves are lower scoring because of everything that's going on. You've also got hotter weather, more humid conditions, ball's not traveling as much. So a lot of it goes in.
That's interesting, because, interesting you mentioned about the humidity. One of the things they keep saying about Camden Yards, when it does get hot and humid, it seems like balls fly out of there. But that's interesting you say that humidity's actually keeping the balls in the ballpark in Taiwan. So I don't know. That's interesting. That's pretty cool. Now, you think there's also a case too where, and granted, I think it's only been, he just started last week, right? So, I mean, you think it's a case where the pitchers have already learned the tendencies of the hitters, since I think, they only have they have a small amount of teams, so I don't know, maybe they're able to scout each other a little better, or you think any of that has to play into it as well, or?
The scouting has been better. They held their draft on the 20th, so some of those guys are getting infused in. Rosters are changing. As a matter of fact, I think the Lions just signed a guy from minor league baseball, Brandon Mann. He had pitched in Japan and I think in Korea also. So he's going to have to go through either quarantine or whatever. And then once he'll graduate from their minor leagues to the majors, I don't know who he's going to replace. Probably Logan Darnell, I don't know. But it's just new faces in the clubhouse, and maybe it'll help. But the cream of the crop is still the Brother Elephants and the Ragged Monkeys, where hopefully Fluban can gain a little bit, but for some reason. I think it's just too large between the other two.
Right. Okay, and we're going to go to the standings right now in the second stage, and I think that happens a lot with our leagues too, with the minor leagues, where it would be like you'd have like the first half, you'd have have a single A team do really well, and then they'll get called up at a double A team, and it sounds like what's happening here with the CPBL as well, from what you're telling me.
And actually, I think they started wearing some alternate jerseys today.
Oh, no kidding.
Florida Elephants had pink jerseys. It's either Taiwan Mother's Day, which I don't think it is, but it could also be an annual breast cancer awareness thing that they always do.
Right.
The Racket and Monkeys actually had some blue jerseys with different cap that said RM instead of the red and white R on their uniforms. I don't know if there was anything specific involved.
Huh, interesting. Yeah, because I know...
Just something alternate. They like to alternate the jerseys in the CPBL as well as a lot of the aesthetics in the KBO.
Right. Well, I think pro leagues worldwide are casting in on that. I mean, I know the big leagues here in the United States do that. I mean, the Premier Leagues in the UK, they're very popular with their alternate jerseys, and I mean, you even see in the KBO with their stuff, and it sounds like they're doing it too. Why not? If they can, I mean, nowadays, I mean, you can buy just about from any store in any country, and if they think they can get some fans to buy a new jersey, why not? It's all marketing.
That's all we roll.
Yep. And we're looking at the second stage standings right now. As you mentioned, the China Trust Brothers Elephants. They are 4-3-0. The Racket and Monkeys are tied with them, as you mentioned as well. It looks like the Fubon Guardians are half a game back at 3-3-0, and the Uni Lions are 2-4-0. So a lot of baseball to be played, and still looks like it's pretty tight. So should be a fun ending to the CPBL season, or at least the ending of this stage, anyhow.
I watch the games every day, so I'm flipping from one game to the other and just watching all the good stuff.
All right.
It's a hell of a lot better than MLB at this point, a hell of a lot more exciting with fan support, with the cheers and everything else, just like the KBO and the NPB. So it's amazing where MLB rather, used to be the main thing with all the yelling, cheering, and screaming.
Right.
But now it's the exact opposite, with the Asia League taking the forefront. It's just totally different, but I watched it for years. You watched it for years. It's more fun at this point.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that is interesting that you mentioned how American audience and audiences and Asian audience have switched, because I'm a fan of professional wrestling, and I used to watch a lot of tapes from Japan, and you got a lot of that as well. It was like the Japanese matches, it seemed like for years their crowds were quiet, they were polite, they even cheered, they did polite applause even if a bad guy did something interesting, but nowadays it seems like their audiences are starting to get a little more rambunctious, and I don't know, the American audiences are kind of like sitting on their hands or whatever. So it's interesting how the cultures are kind of switching in that regard. I don't know. It makes me all the more want to go to these countries. Pie in the sky one day would be literally going on a world tour, hitting your friends in Taiwan, hitting Korea, and hitting Japan, and then that would be, man. You want to talk about a goal for our show, but that's crawling before we can walk. But it's something to work for, I guess. I don't know.
Everybody's got to strive.
Yep, no doubt. All right, and then we're going to travel to Japan and talk about them a little bit for the NPB. I didn't happen to see any news about that per se, so I'm going to go right to their standings. We have the Junichi Dragons defeating the Yakut Swallows by the score of 3-1. The Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks defeating the Saibu Lions for nothing. Japanese, gotta love their corporate sponsorship names in there. The Nippon Ham Fighters defeated Adam Jones's Oryx Buffaloes 3-1. Then we have the Yomiuri Giants beating the Hiroshima Carp 11-3. The Chiba Lotte Marines beating the Rakuten Golden Eagles. Well, I beg your pardon. The Rakuten Golden Eagles beating the Chiba Lotte Marines 8-0. And finally, we have the Yokohama Bay Stars defeating the Hanshin Tigers 7-3. So, we'll go to the standings real quick for that league. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Eric, if you had a comment about that. But
yeah, well, just as a little insight, I'm just reading up here that tomorrow's game with the Hawks, as of 3 hours ago, they've postponed their game with the Lions tomorrow because one of their outfielders, guy by the name of Yuya Hakayawa, tested positive for the coronavirus. He's actually been removed from the team for the last couple of weeks, but obviously there have been some players that might have come in contact with him.
oh gosh. Well,
So it says he was deactivated on July 7th. And it says while he has not come into direct contact with any of the players on first team or staff, people make use of the minor league facilities, and they have since canceled the last couple of games.
oh gosh. Well, hopefully.
It's not a league-wide thing, but it's just something to make people aware that the virus is still around, and you just got to take the precautions and just remove the guy from the team, but keep the testing going.
Right, yeah, definitely. I'm hoping it doesn't become what it became with the major leagues, where it affected not only the two teams that played, but also if you have another visiting team coming in, having to use that clubhouse and worrying about that, and I don't know. That's scary. I hope everyone involved,
Well, again, I think that Asia has handled the virus a whole lot better than we have in the United States. And the situation has been taken care of with the proper protocols and everything else like that, so that NPB can go on
right
with little or no damage.
Okay. Well, I hope so too. I mean, we're applauding all these other leagues for getting things going, and meanwhile, our Major League Baseball, they were bickering. We didn't even think there would be any baseball, but fortunately there is. All right, I'm going to go through the standings right now for the NPB. We'll start with the Central Division. The Yomiuri Giants are at 22-11-2. The Yakult Swallows, who think Giants, well, we read earlier, they are at 17-15-4. The Yokohama Bay Stars are at 18-17-2. The Hanshin Tigers are at 16-17-2. The Junichi Dragons are at 15-21-2. And finishing the bottom of that division, the Hiroshima Carp at 12-19-4. Moving on to the Pacific Division, we have the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks at 22-15-1. The Rakuten Gold Eagles at 20-16-1. The Saibu Lions at 17-18-0. The Chiba Lotte Marines at 18-19-0. The Nippon Ham Fighters at 17-19-2. And the Oryx Buffaloes at 14-21-2. So, there you have it with the division.
Adam Jones.
Yeah, that poor guy. I think he actually did get his first hit like last week or whatever, but I don't know. We're going to need.
Oriole seems to touch.
Yeah.
Not mold.
Well, I mean, he helped Team USA win the last World Baseball Classic. So I think things started going hill after he left, to tell you the truth. But who knows? That black and orange, it's tough to watch out sometimes. But anyway, do you have any additional comments about the NPB?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Okay. All right, folks. Well, on that note, we're going to wrap things up for this edition of Pro Baseball World Tour. Thank you very much for listening in. Don't forget to leave some comments on the video. You can do it during the premiere. You can do live comments actually during the premiere, but you can also comment afterwards. And I will post a link to the new Facebook groups for the channel as well as for the show. And then possibly in the week I'm going to get some Twitter and Instagram going for the show as well. But anyway,
and just one final thing for other guys that want to comment on some of the other indie leagues or some of the other international leagues. If you guys want to come on to the show with us as we're actually doing conference calls and stuff, feel free, because that's just more knowledge for both of us.
No doubt, yeah. And I mean, in our my KBO community, I know we have some crossover of fans who are enthusiastic about the NPB and some like you that follow Taiwan and some other countries as well. So, yeah, definitely. We certainly welcome that. We want the show to be yours, folks. We want to help it grow. We want you to help us help make it grow. So I think we have enough of a community, enough of a positive community that we can certainly do that. So I hope we can. And on that note, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.